Meet John. He's 52, an engineering manager, and last Tuesday, his net worth crossed $2 million. He refreshed the account screen twice just to be sure. $2.01 million. He'd finally made it. For 29 years, he saved, invested, and ignored the noise. Now the number was finally real. But here's what nobody tells you about the moment you hit $2 million. The moment you hit it is the exact moment you are most likely to lose it. Not because the market turns against you, because you quietly turn against yourself. 18 months later, John's $2 million had quietly shrunk to $1.3 million. $700,000 gone. No crash, no scam, just 5 quiet decisions. This video is the map John never had, laid out so you never have to repeat it. $2 million sits in a strange and dangerous place on the wealth ladder. It's enough money to feel rich. It's not enough to be careless. That gap is the whole trap. Only about 6% of American households ever reach a $2 million net worth. That puts John near the top 5% of the entire country by net worth. But the top 2% starts near $2.7 million, so he is nowhere near untouchable. Here's the psychology almost nobody warns you about at exactly this level of wealth. For decades, your habits built the number. At $2 million, the number starts testing your habits. Every dollar now attracts taxes, fees, sales pitches, and your own worst impulses. The people who keep $2 million behave completely differently from the people who first reach it. Reaching it rewards offense. Keeping it rewards defense. Most people never make the switch. Before you assume you'd never slip like John did, look closely at what the data shows. The very same month John crossed $2 million, so did his coworker Carla. Carla is 32, a product lead, and she had reached the number a very different way. Aggressive saving, a paid-off condo, and a low-cost index portfolio she almost never touched. Same finish line, same $2 million, 2 completely different next chapters. John saw $2 million as permission to finally relax and enjoy the reward. Within a single month, he leased a luxury SUV for $900 every month. He upgraded the kitchen for $60,000 and booked a business-class trip abroad. None of it felt reckless. Each choice was small, justified, and honestly deserved. Carla, meanwhile, changed almost nothing about the way she actually lived that first year. Same condo, same used Camry, the same grocery routine she'd kept for years. But she quietly changed 3 specific things that John never even thought to touch. She mapped her tax exposure, her withdrawal order, and her emergency cash buffer. John's plan was simpler. He assumed $2 million would simply take care of itself. That single assumption is the most expensive belief anyone holds at this level of wealth. For nearly 3 decades, John had automated every paycheck and quietly bought index funds through every single downturn. That patience, repeated across 3,000 ordinary paydays, is the entire reason the $2 million number ever existed. Carla built hers faster, saving over half her income while roommates and a modest condo kept her costs remarkably low. Different ages, different speeds, but both arrived carrying the exact same disciplined habit into the exact same danger. The cruel irony is that the very discipline which builds the wealth is the first thing most people abandon. John felt he had earned a long break from being careful. And for 18 months, he genuinely took one. Carla felt the very same pull toward relief, but she treated the milestone as a reason to tighten her focus. Same temptation, opposite response, and that single quiet fork in behavior is where their 2 7-figure paths split. Let's define the real danger clearly, because it isn't at all what most people fear. Most people at $2 million fear one thing: a giant market crash wiping them out. The real threats are quieter: withdrawal rate, timing, taxes, lifestyle, and your own behavior. Each one feels harmless alone. Stacked together, they quietly erase $700,000. John met all 5 without noticing. Carla diffused 4 of them completely on purpose. Here is exactly how each trap works, and precisely how you disarm it. Start with how John actually spent that first 18 months of being a millionaire. The luxury SUV lease alone cost him almost $11,000 every single year. The kitchen remodel came straight out of his taxable brokerage account. Selling those shares triggered a capital gains tax bill he had never once planned for. The trip, the furniture, the club membership added up to $40,000 more. In year 1 alone, John pulled roughly $140,000 from his portfolio. On $2 million, that is a 7% withdrawal rate in a single year. Financial planners consider anything above 4% a genuinely risky pace. Carla, by clear contrast, withdrew nothing at all from her portfolio that first year. She kept a part-time income and let the full $2 million quietly compound untouched. Here's what nobody tells you about actually spending a $2 million portfolio. The number feels infinite. $2 million sounds like it could never truly run dry. But a portfolio is not a salary. It's a machine with a strict, safe output limit. Push past that limit and you don't just overdraw an account, you break the machine. The classic guideline is the 4% rule, and it is genuinely worth understanding. It says you can withdraw about 4% of your portfolio in the very first year. On $2 million, that is $80,000 for that first year of spending. You then adjust that dollar figure upward slightly with inflation every following year. At 4%, the money has historically lasted 30 years or even longer. John was not withdrawing 4%. He was quietly withdrawing 7%. 7% on $2 million is $140,000 a year. At that pace, even good markets struggle to refill what he keeps draining out. Run the numbers. 7% withdrawals can empty a portfolio in roughly 15 years. And that grim math assumes the market behaves. It rarely behaves on any schedule. The fix is almost boring. Anchor your spending to a percentage, not to a feeling. Decide your withdrawal rate deliberately before you ever touch a single dollar. For most people at $2 million, that number lives quietly between 3 and 4%. Think of your portfolio as an orchard, where the $2 million is the trees, not the fruit. Live off the fruit each season, and the orchard keeps growing and feeding you for decades to come. Start cutting down the trees themselves for firewood, and each winter leaves you with fewer and fewer. John didn't feel like he was cutting trees. Each withdrawal simply felt like a perfectly reasonable harvest. But $140,000 a year on a flat market quietly turns harvest into deforestation. The safe harvest number for $2 million is roughly $70,000 to $80,000 a year, not far more. Cross that line, and you are no longer living off your money. Your money is now feeding on itself. This is why the withdrawal rate, not the account balance, is the number that actually keeps you wealthy. Here's the trap that punishes people who happen to retire at exactly the wrong moment. It's called sequence of returns risk, and it is genuinely brutally unfair. Two people can earn the exact same average return over a full 20 years. Same starting $2 million, same average, same withdrawals taken every single year. One of them ends with millions to spare. The other runs completely out of money. The only difference between them is the order in which the returns actually arrived. If your worst years come first, your withdrawals sell shares right at the bottom. Those sold shares never recover because they are already gone before the rebound. Studies show two identical portfolios can end more than $1 million apart. The first 5 years of drawing your portfolio down are the true danger zone. John hit $2 million and immediately started spending into a flat, sideways market. His biggest withdrawals landed squarely in his portfolio's single most fragile window. You can't control the market's order, but you can absolutely control your exposure to it. The defense is a cash buffer, 1 to 3 years of spending held safely in cash. In a down year, you simply spend the cash instead of selling your shares low. That single, simple buffer is what separated Carla's outcome from John's completely. Picture two neighbors, both retiring the very same week, both holding exactly $2 million invested. The first neighbor hits a brutal recession in year 1, while still pulling income out to live on. Every dollar he withdraws during that crash permanently sells shares that would have roared back later. The second neighbor gets calm early years, and the very same recession arrives a full decade later instead. By then, her portfolio had grown so much that the downturn barely left a dent in her plan. Same average return, same spending, same market, separated only by the pure luck of timing. You cannot schedule when recessions arrive, but you absolutely can refuse to sell straight into them. A cash reserve turns a market crash from a permanent wound into a temporary, survivable storm. Here's what almost half of all new millionaires completely forget to plan for: taxes. At $2 million, the tax code stops being harmless background noise. Where your money actually sits now matters just as much as how much you have. Money inside a 401k is taxed as ordinary income the moment you withdraw it. Money in a brokerage account gets taxed on its gains, often at lower rates. Money inside a Roth, when done correctly, can come out completely tax-free. John didn't understand this, so he sold brokerage shares to fund that remodel. That sale triggered a large capital gains bill in one single concentrated year. Withdrawing in the wrong order can cost tens of thousands in completely avoidable taxes. Nearly half of millionaires without an advisor never model these taxes at all. The fix is called withdrawal sequencing. And remarkably, it is mostly free. You choose which account to draw from to deliberately control your own tax bracket. One more piece almost nobody at $2 million truly understands: the step up in basis. When you pass away, your heirs inherit your assets at today's full market value. All the gains you built up over decades, the tax owed on them simply vanishes. So selling deeply appreciated shares late in life can be the most expensive choice of all. And with the estate exemption now $15 million per person, estate tax isn't your threat. At $2 million, income tax is the real leak. Plan the order, not the panic. Imagine 3 buckets holding your 2 million, pre-tax, taxable, and tax-free, each taxed by its own rules. Drain them in the wrong sequence, and you can accidentally launch yourself into a much higher bracket. Drain them in the right sequence, and you can smooth your income to stay in gentle, low brackets. Low-income early retirement years are actually a rare golden window for cheap Roth conversions. Move money from pre-tax to tax-free during those quiet years, and you defuse a future tax time bomb. John did absolutely none of this because he assumed taxes were a problem only for the truly rich. At $2 million, you are exactly rich enough for the tax code to notice you, and it certainly does. Planning the order of your withdrawals is genuinely one of the highest paid single hours of your life. Here's the quietest trap of all, and honestly the hardest single one to feel. It's called lifestyle creep, and it moves one small, reasonable upgrade at a time. The SUV instead of the sedan, the remodel, the nicer everything, everywhere. No single upgrade ever feels like a mistake, and that is exactly why it works so well. Each upgrade quietly raises the baseline cost of simply existing as you. And a permanently higher baseline means a permanently higher withdrawal rate forever. Only about a third of actual millionaires even feel wealthy in the first place, because their spending simply rises to swallow whatever their portfolio produces. John's monthly costs climbed almost $3,000 without one obvious splurge. Over 30 years, that lifestyle creep alone quietly cost him well over $1 million. Carla did the exact opposite. She let the gap between income and spending keep growing. Every raise she got widened that gap instead of quietly raising her lifestyle. The trap isn't enjoying your money. It's raising your baseline so quietly you never notice. Lifestyle creep is dangerous precisely because every single step of it feels completely rational. The nicer car is genuinely safer. The remodel adds real value. The travel makes precious memories. Every justification is true, and together they still quietly raise your permanent cost of living. The problem isn't any one purchase. It's that the new baseline never, ever quietly comes back down. A $3,000 monthly increase quietly demands roughly $900,000 extra dollars to fund safely. So a comfortable upgrade you barely even notice can quietly demand almost another $1 million in the bank. Carla enjoyed her money in small, deliberate ways that never once nudged her baseline upward. Here's the trap that shows up wearing a nice suit and offering to shake your hand. The moment your account crosses $2 million, the phone quietly starts ringing. Advisors, brokers, and salespeople can practically smell a fresh 7-figure account. Most will offer something that sounds perfectly safe. A managed portfolio for a small fee. That small fee is usually 1 full percent of everything you own, every single year. 1% of $2 million is $20,000 gone every year. Over 30 years, a 1% fee can quietly devour an absolute fortune. Compounded across decades, that fee can cost you well over $500,000. John signed up in month 2, honestly relieved to just hand the whole thing off. He got a complex product he didn't need and honestly couldn't fully explain himself. Good advice is genuinely worth paying for. Vague advice priced as a percentage rarely is. Carla paid one flat fee, a single time, for a plan she then simply ran herself. Ask one simple question of anyone selling you help. How exactly are you paid? Here's a silent force that quietly ambushes almost every single $2 million retirement plan. Healthcare costs. A 65-year-old retiring today can expect around $170,000 in lifetime medical costs. For a couple, that estimate climbs to roughly $345,000, and that's after taxes. And that already large figure pointedly does not even include the cost of long-term care. Long-term care, whether a nursing home or an in-home aid, can run 6 figures every single year. John's plan silently assumed he would somehow stay perfectly healthy for the next 40 years straight. One serious diagnosis can turn a comfortable $2 million cushion into a frighteningly thin one overnight. Retiring before 65 also means bridging the gap of years before Medicare even begins covering you. Those pre-Medicare years can quietly cost tens of thousands in private insurance premiums all on their own. Carla, planning to step back early, deliberately carved out a specific reserve just for healthcare bridging. She also weighed a health savings account, one of the very few triple tax advantage tools available anywhere. Money into that account goes in tax-free, grows tax-free, and comes out tax-free for medical costs. It is arguably the single most efficient dollar a future retiree at $2 million can possibly save. Ignore healthcare in your planning, and it will simply plan itself straight out of your portfolio. The fix here is unglamorous but powerful. Budget for medical costs as a certainty, never as a maybe. Here's the slow thief that never once triggers a single alarm. Ordinary, everyday inflation. $2 million today will simply not buy anything close to $2 million in 20 years. At just 3% inflation, your money quietly loses about half its purchasing power in 24 years. So the $2 million that feels like plenty today may feel merely adequate by the time you're 70. This is why hiding your entire fortune in cash is quietly one of the riskiest moves you can make. Cash feels safe because the number never drops, but its real buying power silently erodes underneath. John kept an oversized pile in a plain savings account, quietly proud it never once fell in value. But over a full decade, inflation quietly stripped real value from that idle, comfortable cash. The paradox is that keeping some money invested is genuinely how you keep it safe over the long term. Stocks are volatile in the short run, but historically they have outpaced inflation over the long decades. Carla kept only her cash buffer in cash and left all the rest invested and quietly growing. That careful balance let her sleep soundly through crashes while still outrunning the silent thief. The goal at $2 million isn't to avoid every risk. It's to take exactly the right risks on purpose. Here's the trap sitting underneath all the others, the one that makes them possible. The day the number finally hits $2 million, something quietly changes inside your head. For decades, you behaved exactly like someone still building wealth, careful and patient. Then the number arrives, and quietly, without deciding to, you decide you've arrived too. You switch from building to spending in a single, completely invisible moment. That switch, not the market, is what quietly destroys most $2 million portfolios. John didn't lose $700,000 to a crash or to any scam. He lost it simply because he stopped acting like the man who first earned it. The habits that build $2 million are the exact same habits that keep it. The number is a checkpoint, not a finish line. Almost nobody is ever told that. So what did Carla actually do differently? Nothing dramatic, but everything deliberate. First, she set a withdrawal rate of 3.5%, and she wrote it down. Second, she built a full 2-year cash buffer specifically for the bad markets. Third, she mapped which accounts to draw from and in exactly what order. Fourth, she flatly refused to raise her lifestyle faster than her portfolio grew. Fifth, she paid one flat fee for advice and kept full control of her own plan. None of it required any genius. All of it simply required not switching modes. 5 years later, Carla's $2 million had actually grown instead of shrinking away. John, genuinely humbled, quietly rebuilt using the exact same 5 simple moves. It works, but it is far, far easier to simply never break the machine in the first place. Here's a trap that only appears once you actually have real money worth chasing after. The moment your accounts cross $2 million, you quietly become a target for complicated products. Complexity is often sold as sophistication, as if a confusing product must somehow be a smarter one. But in personal finance, complexity usually just hides fees, risks, and commissions from plain view. John was pitched a complex annuity with surrender charges he genuinely did not understand. The salesman promised safety and guarantees, while quietly locking his money away for years. A good rule at $2 million is simple. If you can't explain it, you probably shouldn't own it. The wealthy people who stay wealthy tend to keep their money almost boringly simple. Carla's entire portfolio fit on a single index card she could explain in under a minute. John's had become a maze of products, each one adding a fee and a little more confusion. Simplicity isn't unsophisticated. At $2 million, simplicity is precisely what keeps you in control. Every layer of complexity you remove is one more place a fee or a mistake can no longer hide. So before you add any product, ask what problem it actually solves that you genuinely have. Most people at $2 million don't need anything exotic. They need discipline they already own. That was the quiet difference. John kept buying solutions. Carla kept her simple system running. Guard your $2 million by guarding its simplicity as fiercely as you guard the balance itself. The most dangerous phrase in all of personal finance is 4 quiet little words. I have made it. Those 4 words silently give you full permission to stop doing the exact things that worked. Wealth is not some destination you finally arrive at. It's a set of behaviors you simply keep repeating. The moment you treat it as a destination, you quietly stop packing for the rest of the journey. Carla's real secret was almost annoyingly simple. She never once allowed herself to feel finished. She celebrated the milestone for exactly one evening, then returned to the very same habits by morning. That refusal to switch from builder to spender is the whole unglamorous secret to actually keeping wealth. Everything else, the rate, the buffer, the taxes, simply flows outward from that one steady mindset. Now here's the part that completely flips how you should think about all of this. Everyone treats $2 million as the safest number they will ever hold. In reality, it may quietly be the single most psychologically dangerous number of your life. $100,000 feels fragile, so you naturally protect it very carefully. $10 million feels bulletproof, so a little waste barely even registers. But 2 million is big enough to feel safe and small enough to be destroyed. It hands you real confidence and real consequences at the very same moment. That exact combination is why so many people peak at 2 million and then slide back. The danger was never really the size of the number, it was always your reaction to it. Here's the one line worth remembering above absolutely everything else in this video. 2 million doesn't fail when the market crashes. It fails when you stop earning it. The market gave John an ordinary flat year. His own decisions did all the rest. Carla faced the exact same market, the same taxes, and the same temptations. She simply refused to believe the number had changed who she needed to be. That quiet refusal, more than any spreadsheet, is what truly protected her wealth. Consider how strangely we treat this number compared to every other amount of money we hold. We guard our very first $1,000 fiercely, then grow careless right when the stakes finally peak. 2 million is the precise altitude where a small mistake finally has enough room to become enormous. A 1% error on $2 million is $20,000 every single year compounding. The same carelessness that cost mere pennies at 20,000 quietly costs fortunes at 2 million. That is the real reason this exact milestone quietly destroys so many otherwise careful, disciplined people. So respect the number by flatly refusing to relax the very instant you finally reach it. So if your own net worth is climbing toward 2 million, please hear this clearly now. The hardest part isn't ever reaching the number. It's not changing once you finally do. Keep the same withdrawal discipline, the same cash buffer, the same humble baseline. Understand your taxes, question every single fee, and never mistake a checkpoint for a finish. The math of keeping 2 million isn't complicated. The psychology is truly the whole game. If this showed you something you didn't know was quietly happening with your money, subscribe to Desmond Wealth right now and tap that notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. Make the decision that matches your reality, not somebody else's convenient sales pitch.